Hello everybody, so my name's Will, for those who don't know me, and tomorrow at the Hyperledger Global Forum, me and Lohan are going to be giving a demo on this thing called PyDentity, on particularly this playground-based platform for interacting with ACA-Py agents using Jupyter Notebook. And this has been developed over the course of like a year, and we've learned a lot, and I think we've created something that's really flexible and hopefully useful as an education tool for interacting with this stuff. So we got some ideas for the demo tomorrow, and we only have 15 minutes, so I thought we'd get in early and, just see if we can get some people set up beforehand. So when we're in the demo, we can actually be more of like playing and interacting with each other rather than just talking about configuration. So this is kind of the architecture, right, of like any Aries application kind of thing. You have your business logic that sends some requests to talk to an agent, who then maybe sends some messages to other agents who send webhooks to other applications, and that's the kind of flow. The problem is there's a lot of things to set up, a lot of different pieces to kind of know about, and it's complicated. So we kind of thought like, okay, how do we make this simpler? And this has been an iterative process over a while. But essentially what we've got with this playground is, there's a Docker Compose thing that just spins up the environment for you, and you can focus on writing business logic in a Jupyter Notebook, basically. So that's just all I'm going to say for now. I'm just going to go through the installation, basically, and just give you an overview of it so that you can hopefully do this maybe before tomorrow if you get time. If not, then no worries. Yeah. So basically what we want, is anyone who's interested to spin up their own agent on a virtual machine, hopefully, expose it on the public network, and then for us to interact together. I've developed like a messaging service so we can send messages, but basically you can write whatever code you'd like, right? Whatever you can imagine, issue credentials, verify credentials, receive credentials, whatever, in this Jupyter Notebook sort of platform. And hopefully, if people are motivated, then they can build things, and we can actually start to see what's possible when people have agents and what they do with what they want to do with them. I also think this might be useful if there's any other agents flying around at the conference. You'll be able to hopefully maybe mischievously connect with them and see what they've got on offer. So it should be fun. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so as I said, we recommend running a virtual machine for this. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it shouldn't be more than a couple of dollars really. And we've been using Linode, and I like it actually. I think it's much simpler than AWS, so this is what we'd recommend. And you've just come in here, create one. We want to use a Ubuntu 20.04 LTS. And then we recommend selecting the region London. And I mean, I've been using this $10 one. Probably the $5 is also fine. So we create it. You want to select an SSH key. And obviously you need to give it a unique name. Okay, so I'm going to pause that while that's provisioning. Okay, so as you can see, it's now running. And, the main thing, if you haven't run a VM before, is like, we need the IP address, and we're going to want to SSH into it. And this depends on the machine that you're running. Like for me, I'm using Ubuntu, and if you're using Apple, then it'll be the same. You can use like the SSH agent. Windows, I'm not sure. Like I've had a lot of problems with Windows. I mean, if you're using Apple and Linux, you can definitely run this locally. It's fine. It just will use ngrok then to expose your agent port to the world, and that's not like stable, so it won't last the whole of the conference. So it's better if you can run it run it on a VM, I think. So before you can SSH in, at least in Linux and Apple, you need to go and add your. You have to do this eval SSH agent. I don't actually know what that does too much, but and you SSH add the key that you're going to use. And this will have been set, when you like select it, when you spin up this VM, which key do you want to use? So then that just means I can actually run this SSH command here. Right, and I can like SSH into the machine. And now this means like every command that I write is basically going to be acting on this machine, not on my local machine. And what we need to do is get this machine's environment ready so it can run the playground. And there's a set of instructions for this. So if you want to run through this on your own, definitely more than welcome to. It's quite a good experience because once you've done it once, you can do it any amount of times. And really all we need is Docker compose, and source to image, and then we just need to clone the repo. So I'll share a link to those instructions. But one of my friends, Moritz, kindly created us an Ansible script. So I never used Ansible before, but it's pretty cool. So if you want like the easy way, you can just run this Ansible script and point to this machine. So there's a repo for the Ansible script, which is here. I'll put a link in. I've only made 3 commits. Moritz did most of this. And I've already cloned it, right? I've cloned the repo. And all you need to do is go into hosts, get your IP address, put the IP address in. Okay, and then in the playground playbook.yaml file, you'll see some commands, and it's whether you want to use a username or password or a SSH key file. And we're going to use the SSH key file. You can just copy this. Oh, the other thing that you're going to need to do, is you need to have Ansible installed on your local machine. And I've already done that in a virtual environment. If you're struggling with that, just let me know. But it's basically pip install Ansible. So I'm going to go just activates my virtual environment, and then I'm going to run this command. And the only thing that we need to change is this SSH to the private key, right? So I want to use the private key that's for my machine that I set up. And so because we've set up the host, right, it's going to run this Ansible script, which is basically this playbook. And there's some, if you want to have a look in, it's quite cool. It's just going to run a bunch of commands for us, which is going to set up the environment, basically. So, it takes quite a while, maybe like 5 minutes. So I'm going to pause this, but it's literally as simple as that. You change the IP address, make sure you're pointing to the right, using the right key file, and then you're good to go, basically. And in 5 minutes time, your environment will be all configured, and then we can just spin up the notebook service. Okay, so it took a little while, but now it's done, and it's kind of done a lot of the configuration for you, which is great, including exposing some ports. So you don't have to handle any of that stuff, which can be stressful. And you can have a flick back through, and you can see all the tasks that it's done. They kind of have a name, and then if you really want to have a look at them, you can go in these folders and actually look at the tasks. But what we're going to do now, so there's a few other instructions, right? And it's all in the README of the repo. So you can have a read of that too. Essentially, we're going to SSH in again. The only thing that's happened is we've removed the root. So you have to SSH in using this user, PyDentity. So yeah, I'll just change this. And you'll need to obviously add your SSH keys using the SSH agent, which I've already done. Okay, so now you can see I'm logged into the machine as PyDentity. And the things that we need to do, most importantly, so you're going to be spinning up this thing called the demo participant agent, which is going to be your agent throughout the conference if you want it to be. So we need to configure its environments, right? So it's yours. And if you just have a look in here, this is what it's done. It's cloned this repo for us. We're going to CD in there. And then we're going to use Vim, which I don't like that much, but it's okay. We're going to edit the environment file, which is the file that kind of configures a lot of the properties around this agent. So where's the wallets, where's the database stored, where are the ports, all this kind of stuff. And you don't need to change very much here at all. The only thing that we need to change is the ACA-Py endpoint. So this works when it's just locally, because Docker can put these in. But if it wants to be more public than this, we need to have an IP address, and you just put the IP address of your machine, and that means this will then be accessible on the network. And to use Vim, you need to press I to edit or insert. So we delete this, and let's just check the host. Yeah, so it's 178. 79, 141. Okay, So that's that. And then the other thing that you want to do, well, you don't need to do this, is label your agent. This will be how other people will be able to identify this agent. So let's call my Ansible lib. Let's make a name. This is Ansible. And then press escape, colon, and WQ, which is like write quit. Weird syntax, but you get used to it. And then that's it, right? Your agent is now ready to go. Let's just check if I've missed any commands in the README. Yeah, okay, so that's it. And now you want to start up these notebooks, right? You want to use this manage script. So the manage script is then gonna, if you have a look in here, so the manage script then tells like Docker Compose, uses this Docker Compose file to spin up all the services. And there's two commands you can use, like /manage start actually spins it up in more like a development environment, and it will spin up two agents. There's one agent called the Hyperledger Global Forum and one called the demo participant. And you're welcome to do this, and it's quite useful if you're building flows and you want to have two agents to interact with, but that's going to use ngrok to tunnel your agent's endpoint to the public internet, and it's just not stable. So instead, we created a script called manage production, which is going to use the docker compose.prod.yaml, and it's only going to spin up one agent. This is like your agent, right, for the foreseeable, if you like. So yeah, this is just build. I'm going to pause it again. Just going to install a bunch of things, and then we're going to spin up, and I'll show you how to access the the Jupyter notebook. So again, another one that takes a little while, but you can see it's spun up 3 Docker services. So we have the wallet, which is a Postgres wallet. We have the business logic, which is a Jupyter notebook server, and we'll need this URL in a minute with the token. I'm just going to copy that. And then an agent. And with the agent, it's going to spin up, it's going to create a master secret, do all that config, and then, there's your names. There's this stuff, right? And then now, we can just Control C. We haven't aborted it, right? It's still running. You can run Docker PS just to check. There are the services. Another useful command, sometimes /scripts get URLs, which is going to output the URL for the notebook, or if you have multiple agents running, it's going to output multiple URLs, which is really useful. So the thing that you want to do now is you see this URL, it's pointing to localhost, and you can go here, you can paste in your URL, and then you can take the IP address. Yeah, see, it doesn't actually work very well. That's the problem. So let me see. So the other thing that you can do, if you put your IP address over that URL, if you replace localhost with this IP address, then paste to that link, you'll be able to go to the notebook. The other thing that you can do, which is quite cool, is if you exit out of here, now you're back in your machine. Thanks to Moritz again. We have this really handy command that we can use, which is going to forward the ports of our machine, right? So we can actually access this remote URL from this localhost URL, which is kind of cool to see. So all you need to do again is, you just need to update this remote machine IP address. Let's just get it from host again, 178. Okay, and then obviously the ports. So we want to be mapping 8888, and we're going to also map to 8888 on our local host. Okay, this works. Okay, so I think that works, and now I can actually copy this URL again. What's happened there is, we've gone onto Jupyter Lab, we've authenticated using that token, and even though this says localhost, this is actually the remote machine. And this is it, right? This is the interface that you'll be using. It's really quite simple. Like there's a bunch of instructions. Like the first thing you can do is, get your attendance credential. And that's making sure that this agent, the demo participant, that's your agent running on this machine, can have a credential that, you might want to use later. You just shift enter to run the cells. We're spinning up a webhook server so our agent can tell us when it has messages. And then we add some listeners, which, they just do logic when we get a message. So this is a multi-use invitation, which we can just accept. And you see we've made a connection here. So I should note this agent controller is something that we've just developed. All it's basically doing is wrapping the Swagger interface. It's a pip installable package that wraps the Swagger interface exposed by ACA-Py agents. So you can just, send requests to it, and, it has a webhook server in there so you can receive events from it. Okay, so then what we're going to do, so we've made a connection, but now you get to request your credential, right? You're going to send a proposal, and you can put in your name. Right, so this is the thing that I'm going to say, hey, Hyperledger Global Forum, please will you issue me this credential? And you can see they've actually done it, and they make a few changes. I think they add something to the description, but ultimately they're just going to offer you back the credential that you've asked for. So then you need to actually request, oh yeah, that is the offer. I want to accept that offer. So we send that and store. And that's basically it. I don't want to go through all these because we can do that tomorrow. Really what I wanted to get you to, hopefully, is this point, right, where you are now up and running and you can start accessing and at least looking around in this notebook. And what's cool is, it's like, here's one I did earlier and it's a bit out of date, but I've had this running for a week maybe. And, I've developed the messaging service, so we'll be able to send messages to each other, hopefully. So like, for example, me and Lohan have been messaging, and it's just a gimmick, right? But it's like, we have these agents now. This ACA-Py code base is pretty well developed, and they can send messages to each other, and they can do some cool stuff. So I'm really interested in getting past like developing the agent layer to thinking about, what is the business logic? What cool ideas could we start to explore and experiment with? And I think this is a really great way to get us a bit closer to that point, because anybody can start writing code in a notebook. You could just create a notebook. I've created some nice friendly recipes, which are just basically templates for some standard stuff. And then there's also some libs, which is actually this code for messaging is in a library that you can just import. But it's all in the notebook, right? So it was a bit longer than I anticipated. It just takes a while, right, this setup stuff, which is why I wanted to do this first, so that hopefully some people can, come to the demo tomorrow with this setup. But even if not, like, we're not going to spend time on the setup tomorrow, like in the demo at least. We're going to spend time on what you can do with these notebooks in a bit more detail and actually looking at the code. So then, I can share this video with anyone who attends, and hopefully this is enough to kind of get you past that first stage, which, is always tricky, which is like installation, configuration, especially when everyone's on different machines. And, we can get to the point where you have an agent running in the cloud that's your agent, and you can start to write custom business logic to do whatever you want, basically. We can interact, you can send messages, it'll be a bit of fun, I hope. So great. I'll see some of you tomorrow. And I think there's going to be a channel in the Hyperledger Rocket Chat called #Aries-Playground. So, I'll be on there to answer any questions, and yeah. I think that's everything. Sweet. Thanks a lot.